You're not tired in your body. You're tired in your bones. You look around at people your age laughing, experimenting, making careless decisions, and you feel older. Not wiser, just heavier, like life has already happened to you. But here's the strange part. You didn't choose to grow up this fast. So what did? Visual. Person walking alone at night, you feel it in small moments. When someone says, "It's not that serious," but for you, it always is. When people talk about figuring it out later, and your mind immediately scans for consequences. When others react emotionally, and you react strategically, you became the responsible one, the calm one, the one who thinks ahead, the one who doesn't need help. But no one talks about the cost of that role. Because when you feel older than your age, it doesn't just affect your mood. It shapes your identity. You start seeing yourself as different, detached, out of sync. You might struggle to relate to people your age. You may feel misunderstood, or quietly resentful. And sometimes, you don't even know how to relax anymore. Psychology calls this accelerated psychological maturation. It often happens in people who experienced early responsibility, emotional unpredictability, high expectations, or subtle instability growing up. Your nervous system learned one thing very early: stay alert, think ahead, be prepared. And slowly, that vigilance became your personality. But here's the deeper question: was that maturity or survival? Visual. Empty room with sunlight. You are not broken. You adapted. In behavioral psychology, adaptation is the brain's core survival strategy. When an environment feels unpredictable, your brain doesn't wait to feel safe. It reorganizes. It upgrades its threat detection. It sharpens its foresight. It builds internal control when external control is missing. Feeling older than your age is often what happens when a child becomes emotionally self-reliant too early. It looks like strength, but underneath it, there's usually a nervous system that never fully relaxed. So, what you call old soul may actually be a brain that grew cautious before it grew playful. And that changes everything. Because if this is adaptation, then it can also be recalibrated. But to do that, you have to understand what's happening inside. Visual. Abstract. Brain animation. Let's simplify it. Your brain has two major systems involved here: the threat detection system, the amygdala and limbic system, and the planning system, the prefrontal cortex. When you grow up in a high responsibility or emotionally unpredictable environment, your amygdala becomes more sensitive. Not dramatic. Sensitive. It scans constantly for tone changes, for mood shifts, for possible problems. At the same time, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and impulse control, activates earlier and more frequently. So instead of reacting impulsively like most teenagers or young adults, you analyze. You forecast. You prepare. Imagine two children on a playground. One climbs the structure freely, the other watches first, calculates, assesses stability. That second child isn't older. Their brain just learned that mistakes have higher consequences. Your brain became like a smoke detector set to high sensitivity. It rings earlier. It rings more often. Not because there's always fire, but because once there was. Safety creates playfulness. Uncertainty creates premature maturity. When safety is low, play decreases, exploration shrinks, seriousness increases. Over time, this feels like aging, but biologically it's vigilance. And vigilance is exhausting. Visual. Slow-moving light patterns. But here's the paradox: the same brain that learned to protect you can also learn to soften. Not with fake positivity. Not with just relax, but through small nervous system shifts. You begin by separating responsibility from identity. You notice when being responsible feels like your only value, and you remind yourself that responsibility is something you do, not who you are. You allow small safe impulses into your life, taking a different route home, ordering something new, saying yes once without overthinking. Your brain slowly relearns. That exploration isn't danger. You catch yourself hyper-scanning worst-case scenarios. And instead of finishing the catastrophe, you pause at, that's one possibility. You reintroduce play, not for productivity, but for flexibility. Watching something silly, drawing badly, moving without tracking progress, and you start updating the invisible rules you live by. Rules like, don't rely on others. Always be prepared. Don't be naive. You question them gently. You adjust them for the present, not the past. Visual. Waves moving slowly. So here's what it all comes down to. You don't feel older because time moved faster for you. You feel older because vigilance replaced played early. Your brain built armor. Armor looks like maturity, but Underneath it, there's still capacity for lightness. Think of yourself like a house with a very sensitive alarm system. You don't need to remove it. You just adjust the sensitivity. Fewer false alarms. More quiet space. Visual, empty room with sunlight returning, and when the alarms soften, something unexpected happens. You don't become younger. You become freer. Maybe you were never too serious. Maybe you were protecting something fragile. Maybe you became older to survive something unstable, and that deserves respect. But survival mode doesn't have to be permanent. Your brain updates, adapts again, this time toward balance. So if you feel older than your age, ask yourself gently, what part of me never felt safe enough to be young? And what would change if I allowed just a little more softness into my life? Sometimes aging isn't about years. It's about how long you've been bracing. And sometimes the most mature thing you can do is finally stop bracing.